Good morning. Happy Wednesday. It has been a while since I have been on here and gone live. If this is your first time joining, my name is Dana Bakich and I am the CEO and founder of Positive Equation. I'm going to just check and make sure that we're actually live. With having so many people online these days, you never know if you can actually see me or if you can hear me. So figured it would be good to go ahead and check that out. And we can. This is what you do when you're a solo team checking it out. Last month, I did an online live interview series that was incredible, talking with Fundraise, Movember, Take Stock in Children, Safari Pals, nonprofits, and tech platforms, all helping the nonprofit space in figuring out what's happening between COVID. And then now, obviously, we're dealing with another pandemic with the racial injustice going on in our country. So there's been a lot going on. And I think from my standpoint, I'm continuing to learn and to listen and to take actionable steps. And as part of that, just trying to help all the nonprofits that I work with in amplifying their message and their actions through online measures. So today, I'm really excited. This came kind of serendipitously, just literally through my inbox. Climate Resolve, Kristina von Hoffmann is joining us this morning, and they had a gala that was planned, as so many of you did, or canceled events. And they sent an email talking about they were going to do a virtual gala that was not on Zoom. And for so many of you, that is kind of the go-to these days, but there are so many other platforms that have incredible features and functionality. And so I just sent her a note and said, would you like to come on and let's talk about it? And it's perfect because they are still in their planning phase. So the event, I believe, is on July 2nd, so just coming up in a couple weeks here. And I think this is a great time to discuss it because they're still iterating, right? They're still thinking about the program, what's happening, talking to sponsors and donors and attendees. So I'm really excited for this conversation. So to do a brief introduction, Christina is from Venice, right here in California. She's native, passionate about human-focused, practical strategies for addressing climate impacts. She's leveraging her experience in project management, team building, and operations. She helps streamline information flows, fiscal and personal management so that Climate Resolve staff are empowered to enact winning climate solutions for LA and beyond. I think we can all champion that and get behind it. She also utilizes her extensive event management experience to produce Climate Resolve's annual gala and other events. I love this about you. She's a devotee of hip hop and local farmers markets, all about it, and volunteers on the board of the Venice Heritage Foundation and looking to build, this is very cool, the first ever history museum for Venice to life. Super excited about that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring Christina on.
Hi.
Hello. Good morning.
Morning. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for being here. It was so great. Literally, you guys, I saw her email and sent her a note. We've never met before. And I think this is the power of what's happening right now, where it's like, hey, what you're doing seems really cool. Can we chat about it? And here we are.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. So I want to dive right into it. Can you tell us a little bit about Climate Resolve's mission and kind of the work you do there?
Absolutely. Yeah. So Climate Resolve was founded in 2010 to fix the gap between people's understanding of climate change and their ability to do something about it, right? Because if you remember, back when this is when I was in college, An Inconvenient Truth had come out, the media was kind of spilling over with all of this science and information, and people were starting to get really overwhelmed by this polar bears and ice caps narrative. And I think that like any issue of this scale, I mean, it was unprecedented at the time. And it still is right now, in a sense, where you've got an existential crisis, but people aren't exactly clear on how to put themselves in the picture and how to take action. And psychologically, when we hear negative information again and again and again, it just shuts the human brain down, right? We don't know what to do. We feel kind of hopeless and helpless. And so for us, this was all about shifting the narrative to drive people to action. So part of that came through putting aside this doom and gloom narrative and taking up one that's related to us, that's in the context of our backyards, in terms of our communities, in our neighborhoods, and in that way beginning to make sense of climate solutions in a tangible way and an actionable way. So a little bit more. So our executive director, Jonathan Parfrey, embarked on this mission to put people in the climate picture. And here in LA, we've got this crazy car culture. We've got pollution. We're notorious, for our sprawl. And we thought, and he's a native like me, he basically figured, if we can do it in LA, we can do it anywhere. And so for us, taking on climate solutions in the local context doesn't look exactly like it might have looked 10 years ago. These days, it looks like improving transportation access in an equitable way. So what does that look like? It means, shading bus stops, installing the first ever hydration stations at those bus stops, increasing the frequency of transportation. So because we know kind of buses tend to run on their own time in LA, and also even providing dedicated bus lanes so that buses move faster and there's an incentive to take public transportation, trains, your bicycle safely, rather than, being stuck in gridlock doing the typical LA car thing, right? In addition to that, Climate Resolve has pioneered urban heat solutions. So we're living in this giant urban heat island. And for those of you who are familiar, maybe not as familiar with the term, what that means basically is that when you take away open space, natural land, trees, and so forth, and you replace it with concrete and asphalt, those materials, and our roofs as well, they absorb the sun's energy and they re-emit it as heat. And so that's why we end up with cities being on average up to sometimes 15 degrees hotter than more rural areas. Yeah, so it's a significant health impact as well. Heat is a key ingredient in smog too, so it contributes to poor air quality and respiratory disease. So we passed the first cool roof ordinance for the city of Los Angeles, and now we've got thousands of cool roofs all over LA, and it's growing. And we also are helping pilot cool pavement, which is not just painting streets white, but implementing a slurry, a material that's reflective, like our cool roofs, that help cool down temperatures safely with no glare. And also installing, of course, the best shade structure of all, trees,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Making cities more beautiful, more livable, because basically to put it in context, in LA, we're living in a city where almost the large majority of the population, 40% in some cases, are considered low income, under-resourced, or disadvantaged communities, depending on the index. And these communities, typically communities of color, are more likely to live by freeways with particulate matter and pollution. They're more likely to live by refineries and industry. They're more likely to live in areas that lack trees and parks. And so for us, the importance is to invest in the communities that are at the front lines, that have contributed the least to climate change impacts, but are suffering the most. So for us, implementing the kind of just, equitable future that we want to see comes through these real tangible solutions, so that it starts with the community, it engages your local government and policymakers, and also industry as well, working with people kind of on the bleeding edge of technology, like the cool pavement manufacturers that I mentioned.
That's incredible. I love how you stated, there was a couple of things in there I really liked about what you say for the organization is in putting the people into climate change, because you're so right. A lot of the big kind of sustainable goals that like the UN puts in place seem so big, right? And so it's like, seems impossible to actually do something that's going to make a change. So when you break it down into those very tactical, tangible things that you can either see or tell a story about, or like a specific actionable law, it makes things seem much more like you're slowly chipping away at a bigger problem to create a solution.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Shifting the narrative is where it starts. And so we also, we do a lot of communication. Shout out to our communications manager, Michael. And I mean, everyone on staff is kind of a part of that storytelling. But, we're really seeking to connect people to information that's not just data points, because we've proven over time that yelling at people with more and more facts and figures isn't the way to shift their minds. The way to shift minds and create lasting systemic change is by connecting with people's values, right? It's about how do you connect with people at the core of who they are. And I think that health is important, families are important, children, the elderly, the disadvantaged are important, everyone is. But, these are the ways that we're addressing folks at the front lines of those impacts.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. It's all about storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? It's like how do everything around us in the climate affects our lives. So it's those touch points, right? And you talk about pavement. I mean, talk about even kids just going outside and playing and the impact that would change in their lives, right? Or even being inside your homes and you're talking about the roof. I'm sure that changes just the productivity of your home and your electricity bill, right? So
totally. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a good point. It's kind of the cool roofs win was a benefit to the triple bottom line. Some folks are familiar with this in the environmental industry, people, profit, planet. So you're saving money on your electricity bill, like you said, Dana, and then also you're reducing demand. And during peak demand, typically on hot days like this one in LA, when people are running their fans and their AC, if they have it more often, so you're reducing the demand on energy, and therefore you're also reducing the amount of emissions coming from our power plants, right? Because we're not entirely off fossil fuels. We're getting there in LA and in California, but we're not there yet. So it's a win on all fronts.
That's awesome. Thank you for the background. So when COVID first happened,
yeah,
how did that affect the work that you guys were doing, and you were obviously planning? Tell me a little bit about what was happening with your event strategy, or what did you have planned? And then how did that kind of all have to change?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is my third year producing the Coolest in LA Gala for Climate Resolve. It's our 7th gala, but it's our 10th anniversary at Climate Resolve as an organization. So thank you. Yeah. So it was supposed to be a big one. It still is going to be a big one. But we had planned to hold the gala in one of the private membership clubs at the Los Angeles Football Club Stadium, our local soccer league. Just super cool, beautiful, LEED platinum facility, kind of just all the bells and whistles. You have a view of the pitch of the soccer field from wherever you are. There's all these glass windows, great photo ops for our sponsors. We were actually going to rent the Jumbotron for our platinum sponsor so they could have their logo up with ours. And so our original gala was slated for March 18th, and Climate Resolve went into quarantine as an organization on March 10th. Mm-hmm. So we really had to hit the brakes and pivot quickly. So that first week at home was not chill.
Oh my God, no.
No, but we're resilient, right? I mean, we're pragmatic folks. And so my boss and I, Jonathan, started talking about, how do we continue to add value for people with this event? And so we postponed the event until July based on initial information from like CDC, from the 1918 pandemic, from the University College of London was putting out really like, sort of the moment reports about the spread and what that arc would look like. As we've learned, it's blown way past any original expectations. And so for us, we kept the date, but ultimately pivoted again once more to a virtual online platform, because that's the way with the governor's plan for reopening. Stage 4 is when large events will be able to take place. But even then, large gatherings of ours, like 300 plus people, there's still really not going to be a precedent for that, we don't think, until well into 2021.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Or even the comfort of people coming to events like that.
Totally. Yeah. And that's, for me, this is what I was saying to my colleagues, our staff from the beginning. I like producing events, even though it is a little bit crazy making. I like producing events because I like throwing a party. Yeah. I like for people to have a good time. I want people to come and say, wow, that was really fun. Right. And in addition to making new connections, right, getting some good food and drinks, but, honoring our honorees, of course, thanking our sponsors for their support. Like, there's so many good celebratory components to a gala like this. And we had a really fun, big one last year, kind of blew past our expectations, and we're expecting to meet those and beyond this year. So for us, we wanted to retain the sense of comfort and, celebration that we'd established so far. So having it online just seemed like the best way to meet everybody's needs.
Yeah. And so when you were going through, I love that you guys literally called out not Zoom, in your communication. So you talked, and I love that you just mentioned you wanted to continue to provide value,
right,
to your attendees and to your sponsors. So when you were going through kind of your research and discovery phase, how did you come upon, and tell us a little bit about the platform that you did decide to go with and why?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like we were talking about before we got started, I just jumped into a million webinars. I started doing research on digital platforms. I participated in some virtual webinars before. I think also another great benefit that we get at Climate Resolve is an organization called Catchafire, which provides free volunteer services. And thanks to the Annenberg Foundation, Climate Resolve has a free membership to this group that sets you up with volunteers. And they've been,
organization.
Catchafire is amazing. I really think, yeah, shout out to Catchafire. Like, they are providing a lot of value. They've helped us a lot at Climate Resolve, from everything from basic Excel skills to a woman named Lisa, who I connected with through the platform, who ultimately helped me shape the content of our sponsorship package once we pivoted to Remo. And she was fantastic. And we're still keeping in touch. So back to the beginning, I started looking up all of these sites and wanted something that, like you said, provided value for people. Climate Resolve's Gala is known for being a great networking event. We pull in people. We are a convener as an organization, and so our attendees are from private industry. They're from local government, right? They are from advocacy, like us. They're nonprofit folks too, public service people. So we wanted to give people the opportunity to connect with each other, not just to share our, tout ourselves, and not just to celebrate our honorees, but also that. So Remo, I found through a blog. Somewhere on the internet with the list of event platforms that I've been checking out. And that really, far above and beyond any of the other platforms, gives people the opportunity to connect. It is, you drop into a platform that looks like...
I'll bring up the screen while you're talking about it.
Yeah, great. So yeah, there's a little GIF down there. So yeah, you can see it there. There's tables of 6, and you can drop in by double clicking, so you can jump around the room. And yeah, there's a deck too with more graphics in it. But that one, but basically, so people have the opportunity to drop into tables, and it opens up into a video conferencing space that does look a little bit like Zoom or any other kind of typical conference space, but it gives people the chance to speak to each other. We also enabled our sponsors. We gave a benefit to our silver and above level sponsors to host a table. So now it becomes LADWP's table, for example. So if you're interested in the decarbonization of the grid at LADWP, you can drop in and speak to folks from there and connect with them about what they're doing, so that there's a bit of a conversation starter as well. So we've collected a couple of sentences from each of our sponsors and are sharing that in our marketing materials. So people are prompted, they know who's there. We'll share the attendee list with people who opt in ahead of time, so people know who to expect and who to look for. And on that note, in Remo, you can also search for someone's name. So say I want to find Dana at the event, I go and type in your name and you pop up. I get to chat with you directly. We can find an open table and chat video wise at an open table. And also, in addition to that, there is that main feature platform that we wanted to, that main stage moment where our MC, who's the California Secretary for Natural Resources, Wade Crowfoot, everyone's stuck with us, which is so fantastic. So he's going to be our MC, tuning in live. I'll be managing from the back end, but he's gonna speak. Our boss, Jonathan, will say some words. We'll have a video about Climate Resolve and our 10-year anniversary. And then we'll do our award ceremony. So we are sending our honorees and every attendee a meal for the night, right to their homes, with an amazing vendor. Another group I'd like to give thanks to, Wife of the Party. Wife with a
cool
W.
name.
Yeah, fun. So all female run group out of LA, and they were recommended to us by a board member, and they produce way bigger events than ours, like, celebrity events. And so we feel really lucky to have them. And so they had just coordinated like a big birthday party where they had done drop-offs for all of the attendees. It was about 50 people. Yeah. So ours is a bit bigger. You know, it's still up there near 300. So they're helping us coordinate deliveries to people in state and also out of state too. They're finding vendors outside our space, outside California, to deliver food to our guests. So people will have a drink to share. They'll have some wine. They'll have their food. And we'll be able to toast our honorees. And last thing, I decided, since we're going live today, this hasn't been released yet, but I thought it would be fun to share. Yeah, so you heard it here first. We actually just booked an amazing performer to do a 3-song set during our event. Her name is Gavin Turek, Turek. Gavin is Gavin. She's amazing. She's kind of like a new Diana Ross, like got a lot of disco vibes. And so she's going to do a set with her guitarist, an acoustic set. So hopefully people will get up out of their seats, maybe dance a little bit too during the program. So we're really excited about that too. That's just, another fun benefit we'll be announcing through marketing this probably this week or next.
That's amazing. That's awesome. And I think everything that you talked about just goes back to experience. Right? You just want people, what I love. So after they sent out this email, I was like, what is this platform? And so I told her I went on a webinar and I went through a full demo where you get to experience being inside the platform. And it's great because, just like you said, you as a participant have control of bouncing around tables and networking and moving. And then when the presentation is ready to start, you get to take over the screen and still have your moment.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
That there was some still like freedom and flexibility of, like, you can wander a room and do your own thing, but still be brought together for a main event. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, agreed. And then, obviously video sharing capabilities. We can like drop a YouTube video right in, so we can play that celebration video that I mentioned. We'll play a video thanking our sponsors as well. And I don't think I mentioned this prior. So at some of the tables, they're called lounge tables on the side. They have embedded media as well. So we've given that also as a benefit package, as a value add for branding and marketing visibility to our top level sponsors, our platinum and gold level sponsors, so that they can play, some kind of explainer video. So maybe it's a climate initiative they have going on, and it can also drop in a hyperlink that takes you off site. To sign up for a newsletter, for example.
Yeah, that's one of the great things I like about digital events, is that sponsors can see a direct, depending upon how you integrate it, but a direct ROI from being there. Not only the impact of just supporting the organization, but there can be somewhere immediately that somebody can go to learn more about what they do. And that was actually going to be my next question to you, is when you guys were deciding to A, go virtual, B, pick this platform, did you talk to sponsors about that transition, or how did that, and I guess also registered attendees that maybe had gone to events in the past, was there any kind of pre-planning discussion before you guys decided to move forward?
Yeah, a couple of things. I want to preface this by saying Climate Resolve was in a really fortunate position. Just hearing the stories from other organizations on Catch-a-Fire, for example, and all of the webinars that they were running that I was attending, I just, was really grateful, feel very fortunate that we had already done the legwork of pulling in sponsors and selling tickets to our attendees. So we have an amazing sponsor group. I mean, a lot of our sponsors, they're year over year. They've been back for 3 years and running. And so they know me, I know them, which is really nice too. But I didn't have to start from scratch on a digital platform. So I just had to migrate everyone over. So that's just what that is, it's people relations. And so so I picked up the phone and called our 40 plus sponsors, myself, just one by one, talking to them about the new platform, sent them the deck that we had put together. So we had already made the decision ahead of time. But for us, it was a re-enrollment process to make sure they know what it is, because it is new, it's different, and there is that kind of like with friends who have toddlers, the download period, right? Not to infantilize, but I had that too, because it's like, oh my God, how am I going to do this, right? So I had those kind of conversations that were, this is what it is, this is what you can expect. so that people feel comfortable with it. And like, again, coming back around, they feel like they're going to have a good time, which I hope we all do. That's what I want. So I had those calls with everyone. And I mean, our sponsors are just amazing groups. They all have stuck with us. We haven't lost a single one. And all of our attendees, so just like really so thankful for that big Climate Resolve community that's come around with us.
Yep.
And so we had those calls, and I'm also doing some tutorials for the sponsors, so that even though Remo is fairly simple, it opens in your browser. You don't have to download anything like Zoom, which was appealing, just so people know how to make the most of it. I mean, for example, Remo also has a digital business card. So you can add your headshot, you can add your LinkedIn profile, you can even add a link to a scheduling calendar, like if you use Calendly. Right. So you can actually make it's not just, here's my business card and you never talk again. Right. You can actually book a meeting on the spot. And so we hope people take advantage of that too. And so we wanted to make sure that people were equipped to log in and not spend 15, 20 minutes navigating it for the first time. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's amazing. And I think what it comes down to is, right, sponsors and whoever I've talked to has said, or I've told them, if they support your cause, they're not going to care if it's in person or if it's an event, because or online. We are all going through, it's a very rare time where we are all experiencing something together. And so there's this like shared, I always say it's kind of like a sports team. Like when you get together and you're cheering with like a random stranger for the LA Rams, you're together because you love this one thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you don't know each other, but you're like fist pumping and you're like, yeah, and you're cheering because you support the cause. And in this case being your organization. So that's amazing. So I guess, what are your expectations? Did you guys normally have any silent auctions or live auctions that you had to pivot, or is it just primarily like ticket sales as far as fundraising?
It is primarily ticket sales and sponsorships. We don't have a precedent of doing a live auction. So that's another topic I've seen a lot come up in the nonprofit community, is how to do that. But I have seen some groups that did some pretty amazing YouTube lives. I'll say just to, I did a bunch of R&D and attended other folks' galas. And I think YouTube live is really great if it is more of less of a networking event and more of a program-based event, like if you were actually sitting down at tables in the first place. And so for the auction platform, I saw folks do a YouTube live where they had sent out the auction site information. So you could be on your phone while watching the YouTube live, texting in to bid on items at the same time. Cool. And I thought that was really cool. So we haven't done that, but kudos to the people who are, because I think that there's a lot of people that have blown past their, I've heard about people who have blown past their sponsorship or, donation goals through that method.
Yeah. And something I always like to share is people like to ask a lot of times, how do we transition the value of the in-person event? Right. And same thing, get our silent auction items. And I say, when you're doing a YouTube live or you're doing a Facebook live or anything that's streaming live, where you're opening it up to more than the amount of people that could ever fit in seats in a space in four walls. You have an unlimited audience. So whereas before I might go to an in-person event, but my best friend Sarah in Florida wouldn't be there, or anybody who lives anywhere else, but they see that you're going and you're supporting. So it gives you the opportunity as a supporter of a cause to branch out and introduce other people to it that might not be in the local area too.
Absolutely. So. Yeah. You get a much broader network effect, which is very cool. We like I said, we had some sponsors have offices in New York, in Houston, in Minnesota even. And so they're getting dinner and they're tuning in too, which is pretty cool. They're staying up late for us, so I'm grateful for that. But
I love it.
But we had to make some compromises. Yeah.
Yeah. We have a comment. Catherine says, thanks for sharing your experience. She's in Texas, talking about just joining from somewhere else, on the board of a regional writing organization. And they converted their big annual event to a virtual fundraiser using Zoom a week after COVID started. Yes. They're looking for alternative options for their August event. Amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, Catherine, this could be great. And I told Christina after they have their July event, I want her to come back on and talk about how it went and were there any surprises, or there's always successes and challenges and weird things that happen, whether you're doing it in person or a digital event.
Totally. Yeah.
Digital is the wild, wild west. You never know when something's going to happen.
I know. Yeah. We just say great, like, have some grace. Like somebody's video is going to freeze, right? It's just, it'll happen. And so, I think it's a very human time too, dealing with all of this, and people understand we're all at home. We're all squirreled away wherever we are. I mean, some people are back to the office at this point, but everyone's making some kind of concession at this point.
Yes. And I'm going to put up here, if anybody watching has any other questions while we still have Christina, this is I'm just going to put the website again. This is the website that you can go to find out more information, and I'll show it up here again. I think you guys did a beautiful job with your branding. I think content is so important right now. Here you go. So not only did they explain that they were going online, but I love that you guys showcase, hey, this is kind of what it's going to look like. Right? You give a little bit of a teaser, so it's not completely, and then you do literally what to expect when you're expecting a virtual gala.
That was Michael's idea. So again, thank you, Michael. He's fantastic. Our communications manager is great. And also we are really lucky to work with an external design team called Ride or Cry. It's just Ride or Cry. That works a lot of the time with bigger brands and bands, and we're their nonprofit client. So we get, they've been behind all of the visuals on our event. And also if anyone listening goes to the website, you can check out at the top of the page some previous events as well in the upper corner.
Oh, yeah.
And so hopefully those links are working. Yeah. But yeah, they've done our visuals for most of our work for the last few years. So
very cool.
Thanks to them, Stephania, Jacob, and folks, we've had the benefit of having a really cool branding package to deliver to people, because I think that's what for Climate Resolve, we've always kind of towed the line between, there's like a little bit of, I think we try not to be too precious about our work, right? We want it to be fun. There's some wry humor there. There's some, sarcasm. We try to keep it light for people, as a culture, as an organization, and then also in our work, So I think that when you're working on something as massive and kind of menacing as climate change, just as much as the people who are on the front lines working to fight against systemic racism, which is embedded in this massive intersectional climate issue, right, that I mentioned in the beginning of our conversation, it can get really heavy, right? It gets really heavy.
A lot of heaviness right now. 100%.
There's it's a lot of heaviness. And so self-care is one thing, and that's kind of it's become its own thing, but also humor is another, and so we try and keep it light and fun.
I love that.
Yeah.
Catherine she had a question on here.
Yeah.
Have you mixed platforms in the same event? So we use Zoom, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And also said, I love the idea of separate rooms that you described in Remo.
We have not at this point, Catherine. So I know of folks who are doing that, like doing the YouTube live, but doing it through something like StreamYard, like we're broadcasting through right now, and also through Twitch. That was something that Wife of the Party had mentioned to us, would you be interested in doing it through Twitch? But because it's not so much a broadcast, we didn't feel the need to go beyond Remo, because Remo has everything that we needed embedded in it.
It's a different experience. And I think it's based upon you already had tickets sold to a private type of event.
Yes.
So I feel like it made sense to create an online private kind of event.
Yes.
So in this case, that's what this platform allows you to do versus something like the social platforms or Zoom, which are more live streaming, which is more open to more people than selling a ticket per se.
Absolutely. With YouTube Lives, there's a great feature of putting a banner across the bottom. So our friends at Grid Alternatives did one recently. It was beautifully produced, really slick, like really great video. And it was live and recorded, mixed in, but it was one production. And, you have the click to donate bar that comes across the bottom of the page. And I know that they surpassed their fundraising goals. They had a lot of sponsors come through, and then they also had people donate in real time on the spot. For us, we consider the donations kind of baked before the event. And I mean, development people maybe tell me I'm wrong here, but we don't make an ask again during the event. We just, kind of consider it baked, like I said, and hope that people just enjoy the event.
Yeah. Amazing. So how can people find you guys? How can they support you? Are there any tickets left?
We only have a few. We actually are we're coming around. We're coming right up on our max right now, which is pretty amazing. So there's a few tickets left at coolestinla.org, like the URL that you had put up. And then also follow us on Climate Resolve. We've got great content if you're interested in climate solutions. Regionally, statewide, and things that also apply no matter where you are. So we're at Climate Resolve on Twitter, and we've got regular updates there as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Let me just double check. We got all the questions. Anyway, last chance. And there's a slight delay on these things, so I'll give you guys just a couple more seconds. Christina, thank you so much. I can't wait to hear how it goes.
Thank you, Dana.
I know that changing things within the last week, oh man, that week was rough. My birthday was on March 17th, and I had to postpone my wedding the day before.
Oh, wow.
So I totally get the and calling. We called all of our guests over the weekend. It's like a heavy emotional, like every time you have to say the same thing over. And so it's a lot, but I think people really appreciate the personal, like one-to-one connection. And you're right. I think at the end of the day, it's all about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about personal connection. And even having, I say people support causes, but people support the people behind the causes even more so. So thank you for what you guys are doing. It's amazing. It's incredible. And I hope
thank you for supporting us.
Of course. No, everybody go check it out. And I will definitely be reaching out after July. I'll give you some days.
Okay.
After the event, and I will reach out and I will do like a recap for you guys so we can talk about how it went.
Great. Sounds great.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Okay. Bye.
Amazing. So these are the conversations I love to have on here, where it's just, we're figuring it out as we go. We're trying things, pivoting. I think right now we cannot be ever afraid to fail. And I love what Christina talked about. We're just being human, right? There's a lot of grace right now. So we're just figuring things out. And I think a lot of times we always want a proof of concept of something. And we are seeing definite learnings happening in the space since this all happened. But sometimes you just got to go for it. You got to see what works, talk to your people, talk to your sponsors, talk to your donors, and figure out what works best for you. So thank you so much for joining me this morning. Hope you have a great rest of the week, and I will see you guys on here soon.